Hello to the pessimistic, optimistic, and everyone in between. My name is Connor Philippine. Welcome back to the Minnesotan Sports Podcast, and we're getting into the thick of it now. 3 weeks left to go in the regular season for the NFL, and there are some really important matchups in these coming weeks that are really gonna. I made a video just yesterday actually that you should check out where I break down the current playoff picture and all the close matchups. I made predictions on what I thought would end up being the final seven in each conference by the end of the season. Because, if you look at it, there are realistically 11 teams in the AFC that can still, that are in playoff contention right now. And then in the NFC, technically you could say the Packers are still in it. So really 11 teams in the NFC that are also in that playoff picture. Of course, a couple teams in each conference have already clinched, but the playoff race is wilder this year than has been in a while. And I think Week 18 is going to be crazy because there's going to be so many tiebreaker based things that are going to end up happening. There's a lot of all those clinching scenarios people go through. It's going to be crazy this year. So a lot of exciting stuff to come. But today I'm going to be going through all of the Week 16 matchups and making my predictions on what I think will happen. And we'll just kick things off here with what should be a very good game, Saints at Rams, happening tonight. Thankfully, I'll be uploading this video before the game starts, but it'll probably be close. So hopefully you can watch this before this game. But this is a really interesting one. Derek Carr, had a few weeks out. He came back last week. The Rams with Stafford, Stafford's had a great year. 3,320 yards, 21 TDs, 9 interceptions. The Rams have really exceeded my expectations this season, but the question is, will that be sustained in the last few weeks of the season? The Saints also have been very streaky. They've dealt with a lot of quarterback issues with Derek Carr constantly being hurt, coming in and out of play as the season's gone on. Carr is back, though. And I think a lot of this will have to do with Chris Olave's availability and the most recent injury reports. Let's take a look at it real quick because I don't remember what the last thing on him was. And it looks like he is going to start. So that'll be big for the Saints. And it was looking like he would potentially be able to start in last week's game before they decided to pull him out as a precaution because they were playing the Giants. You don't really need all your guys against the Giants. With Chris Olave in, I'm going to say the Saints win this game. Their offense is completely changed when Olave is in the starting lineup. He, of course, wasn't in the starting lineup last week when I needed him to help win my fantasy matchup, but of course, that didn't happen. I'm going to say the Saints win this game. I think that their offense clicks with Olave. The Rams are also kind of a streaky team, and I don't know, I feel like when it comes to which team I can see being a bigger force in the playoffs, I think it's the Saints, and I think they'll show that on Thursday Night Football from at least 50-50 crowd, if not more Saints than Ram fans at SoFi Stadium on Thursday Night Football. The two Saturday games, interestingly enough, for the December 23rd matchups, 3:30 will be Bengals at Steelers. This is going to be another interesting game where the Bengals are firmly in the playoff race right now, and the Steelers found their way out of it after they were at 1 point 7-5, and then they lost the last two. It's been rough for them offensively over the last few weeks, and their defense just has not been able to keep up with how poorly the offense have played. After a while, your defense can only carry you so far. And we saw that with the Steelers the last few weeks, and even with Jake Browning, Browning has really held his own. There's definitely a question to be asked about whether or not he can sustain it late in the season when it really counts. But against the Steelers, I think they should be able to get this win. This offense has been completely stagnant, and the Bengals' defense has honestly been pretty good. I expect Hendrickson to really eat in this game, so give me the Bengals to improve to 9-6 and give themselves a really good chance of making the playoffs after that win. Bills at Chargers. The Bills are also trying to fight for one of those playoff spots. The Chargers are a dumpster fire right now. With Herbert being out, they just lost by 40 plus points, I believe it was, to the Raiders last week on Thursday night. They fired Staley. I mean, this Chargers team has no redeeming qualities right now, and the Bills are on one of the steepest inclines that we have this point of the season. So the Bills exponentially growing in and getting back up to what we expected of them to start the season, and so the Bills should easily win that game. I'm going to skip over the Lions-Vikings game. As always, I do a separate preview of that game and my own separate prediction for it, so make sure you check that one out. It should be up on Friday, tomorrow anyway. I think you can probably guess what my prediction is going to be with that game, but full preview will be out tomorrow for that, so check that out. Colts and Falcons, another crucial game. The Colts currently not only battling it out for currently in the 7th seed in the AFC, but they're now tied with the Jags and also tied with the Texans in a three-way tie for that AFC South crown. And the Texans are going to be without Stroud this week. The Jags, we'll get to them, but the Colts could end up at the end of this week potentially leading the AFC South. And for the Colts, or for the Falcons, they need to win their division basically to find a way to get into the playoff race, because at 6-8 right now, there's too many teams that are all 7-7 and a lot of them have some easier matchups throughout the rest of the season. I don't think the Falcons are going to be able to get in, and so I think they're going to have to need the Bucks and Saints to lose some games. And who knows, maybe the Rams can beat the Saints and they'll have a chance, but the Falcons need to keep winning games if they're going to have any chance to move on. That being said, I mean, the Falcons offense has hit a new low. The way they played last week against the Panthers, giving the Panthers a 9-7 win, that should be very embarrassing for your team. Bijan Robinson put up a really bad performance. I mean, this Falcons team could not have less momentum going into this game. So I'm going to have to go with the Colts to take this one. And they're 5-2 away right now this season. They've been road warriors. So all that kind of chalks up to the Colts winning this game and getting a much better chance of trying to steal away this AFC South division. Seahawks and Titans. The Titans have showed a lot of resolve over the last few weeks. They almost beat the Texans last week. They defeated the Dolphins a couple weeks back. They've shown a lot of resolve, but the Seahawks, I think, are really carrying some positive momentum, and they are currently the 7th seed in the playoff picture, or actually the 8th seed, with the potential to leapfrog the Vikings if the Vikings do lose to the Lions. They have a lot more to play for, and all those combination of things are why I think the Seahawks should be able to get this win against the Tennessee Titans. Not enough of a difference in matchup between those two teams where I feel like that warrants the upset of the week. Commanders at Jets. This is going to be a horse race. The Commanders almost finding a way to beat the Rams last week. Brissett came in for the Commanders at the end of the game and actually played pretty well. So I honestly feel like unless Washington is just dead set on development at this point, if they want their best chance of winning, they'd put Brissett in, but they might keep Howell in. I mean, who knows? The Jets, on the other hand, somehow they're favored to win this game. I don't know how. They just put up one of the worst performances of the year against the Dolphins last week. I mean, it's really a toss-up on who wins this game. I'm going to go with the Jets to win it just because simply they're at home and the Commanders have really played some bad football. Last week was a rare exception to that, but even with the way the Jets have been playing at home, I got to pick them. But again, it's kind of a toss-up at that point. The Packers at the Panthers. If the Panthers hadn't won that impressive game last week against the Falcons, I could definitely see this as a potential upset. But I think the Packers are coming off of a rough loss to the Bucks. They're angry. They have a lot to prove, and they still have a chance to make it into the playoffs. So in a game that could potentially be a trap game, I still think the Packers will find a way to win this one, improve to 7-8, knowing that they could potentially beat the Vikings next week and be at 500 with a real chance to make it into the playoffs. They still have too much to play for, where I got to go with them. Browns at Texans. Now, this is a really tough one because Stroud is most likely going to not play. And this is a huge game that they really needed Stroud to play in because the Texans currently, right now, 8-6. They are just barely out of the playoff race as it stands. And they were so close to potentially leapfrogging the Jaguars for the AFC South. I feel like this is a game they definitely needed to find a way to win if they were going to be able to do that. And with Stroud out, I just don't see how the Texans are going to be able to get past the Browns. Not to mention the fact that this offense has taken so many hits in the middle to late parts of the season. I mean, the Tank Dell out, and then I can't remember the name of the other Texans player that was completely balling out the last few weeks before he also got hurt. Collins, I believe. And so the Texans' offense is also not firing on all cylinders, regardless of if Stroud plays or not. I still think that Stroud has been playing well enough where if the Texans were to sneak into the playoffs, they'd be a scary team to play. But I am just concerned about whether or not they're going to be able to get this done the rest of the stretch. For this game, anyway, against the Browns, I definitely see them losing without Stroud. If he plays, it could be a really interesting game. But Stroud in the concussion protocol, I mean, with Tua's injuries last season, you just don't want to take that risk, especially if you do have a chance to keep going the rest of the season. It's going to be a tough one to potentially lose, but without Stroud, I see the Browns winning that one. Jags at Bucks. Now, this is a really interesting matchup. It's possible. I mean, the Texans need this game to go the Bucks' way in order for them to still have a chance in the AFC South, and the Colts definitely rooting against the Jags in this one as well. So you see why, this late in the season it gets so fun because every game could completely shift the playoff picture, and this year is no exception. In fact, it's probably more chaotic than seasons past. And the Bucks also trying to hold on to that NFC South, like we're talking about. If you want to make the playoffs, you know, it might have to come through winning the NFC South. Now, quick little tidbit, just kind of on the side. If the Vikings want to still try and make the playoffs, which they still have a good chance of doing, even if they do lose to the Lions this week, they're really going to be rooting for the Bucks to win because if the Bucks win the NFC South, then the Vikings would have the tiebreaker over the Saints, over the Falcons, and over the Panthers. So they'd much rather have the Buccaneers win and then find a way to get the tiebreaker over the Saints. If the Bucks lose and they fall into the wild card race, they would get that advantage over the Vikings since they beat them in week 1 of the season. So if you're a Vikings fan, root for the Bucks to win the division. But anyway, Trevor Lawrence actually put up a pretty good performance against the Ravens. Even though he only got the 7 points, it was an inability to score in the red zone, and it was a multitude of, bad plays, mistakes. But I still think this Jags team is more than capable of still making its way into the playoffs, especially since the Texans might lose. The Colts are going to be playing a tough game. So this is a really tough one. The Bucks have honestly been playing some pretty good football, and I still, even right now, I still don't think Lawrence is 100% or even close to 100% from that injury he sustained where we initially thought he might be out for the season. I mean, I got to go with the Bucks here. The Bucks 3-3 at home. It is a home game. The Jags, I mean, at this point it's just kind of like they're both stay in South Florida, but still home field advantage is still huge. Lawrence not 100%. I got to go with the Bucks to win this game, and it would make the AFC South that much more interesting in the last couple games of this season. Cardinals Bears, let's not waste too much time on this one. I'm going to go with the Bears to win this one since they're at home and the Cardinals defense has just been atrocious lately. Fields might actually look like an NFL quarterback in this game when he hasn't for the majority of the season. That's about all I want to spend on that because the game doesn't even matter. Cowboys at Dolphins. Now this is a really good matchup. Both teams at 10-4. The Cowboys still with an outside chance of trying to get that NFC East championship victory over the Eagles, but the Eagles, like we've been mentioning, they can win out and still get that tiebreaker over the Cowboys. The only reason that the Cowboys have the division right now is because they've played more games within the NFC, so they technically have the conference record tiebreaker. But if the Eagles win out, regardless of what the Cowboys do, they will get that second seed. I fully expect them to, but the Cowboys still have an outside chance of doing that. I mean, the Eagles just lost to the Seahawks last week, so who knows what could happen. The Dolphins, on the other hand, they are in an interesting position as well, where they still could technically get the one seed. The Chiefs are breathing down their necks to just flip their spots because the Chiefs have the tiebreaker over them. And not to mention the fact that if the Jags find a way to win, I mean, they're only 2 games away from the Jags, so still a lot could change. So the Dolphins really needing this win to try and get that one seed. I mean, that's a huge potential bye to have, especially with the Dolphins having some injured players. Tyreek Hill's health is huge in this game. You know, the Dolphins are 6-1 at home. The Cowboys have been atrocious away. I think that's got to be the deciding factor in this game. I think the Dolphins will find a way to win unless the Cowboys can really turn things around and get a hard-fought road win against a good team and a good offense. But the way they played against the Bills last week in an away game, I just have confidence for the Cowboys right now is definitely lower than it was a couple weeks ago. So I got to go with the Dolphins here. I mean, the Cowboys, but neither team really has to worry about a playoff situation, like missing the playoffs or anything like that. However, the one thing the Dolphins have going against them is that the Bills could potentially still sneak up and take their spot for the division. And so I think that'll be another fire under the Dolphins as the Cowboys, they're going to be the 5 seed no matter what happens. So interesting stand in terms of standings, but I think the Dolphins should be able to get this win over the Cowboys in that home game. Patriots Broncos. This is one that I think the Broncos should be able to take care of. The Broncos seriously needing a win to stay alive in the playoff picture. The Patriots just, it's kind of sad that they put up one of their best performances of the season last week and they still lost by double digits to the Chiefs. But yeah, the Patriots, it's not their year. Bill Belichick doing everything he can, but this lineup is just not good. The Broncos 4-3 at home. I think the Broncos should win. They are 7 points in favor, whatever the phrase is. Monday games on Christmas. We've got Raiders Chiefs at noon, Giants at Eagles at 3:30, and then the absolute creme de la creme of NFL games, Ravens at 49ers on Monday night. Raiders play the Chiefs, and I think, I don't have my upset of the week yet. I think the Eagles have been upset too many times for me to pick against them, so I'll do that first. Also, the Eagles win against the Giants. The Giants, went back to their form that we expected from them. DeVito had a nice little run there in that one game, but then, the Giants had no leg to stand on against the Saints last week, and the Eagles have lost too many games in a row. I think they're going to come back with a vengeance, 5-1 at home. I don't think they can lose this game. So I think the only thing left is the Raiders to beat the Chiefs in my upset of the week. I have to pick one every week. That's the rule, and I'm having a tough time picking any of these other matchups over this one. The Chiefs coming off of a couple weeks where a lot of people have been, kind of bashing Mahomes for the way he reacted to that loss. It's a long shot because the Raiders are 1-5 away. But if I'm going to pick one upset, I'm going to pick with the Raiders to beat the Chiefs. And then final game of the week, Ravens at 49ers. This is just a great matchup. A rematch of, what was it, 2012, 2013 Super Bowl. I can't remember which that was, and I'm not going to spend time trying to figure out what the Roman numeral was that year. But this should be a fantastic matchup, and it's the matchup between the 2 1 seeds in each conference. So this could easily be the Super Bowl matchup. I definitely think the 49ers will be in the Super Bowl. The Ravens, who knows? I mean, the top 3 or even 4 teams could be in the Super Bowl in that conference right now. It's such a toss-up. But, I mean, this is going to be a fantastic matchup. The 49ers are favored by 5, and right now the 49ers, it's going to be their biggest test of the season. But I definitely think that the 49ers can win this game. It should be a lot closer than 49ers games of the past have been. And Lamar Jackson might be able to do more against this 49ers defense than some of the matchups that the Niners have had in the last few weeks. But I still think the 49ers are the best team in football right now by a pretty wide margin. And so they should be able to get this victory and improve to 12-3. And I feel like that would all but seal their number one seed status. So those are my predictions for week 16 of the NFL season. This is where it gets really fun and really exciting. So get your popcorn ready. It's about to be so fun. But thanks so much for watching this one. Let me know in the comments what game you're most excited to watch. And if you're a fan of any team besides the Vikings, who are you rooting for and rooting against this week? So thanks so much for watching. I will see you in the next video previewing the Vikings game, and I'll see you on the flip side.